Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not to me, to yourself. When was the last time you tried to do something important and a voice inside your head said, "You are not ready. This won't work. Who are you to try this?" And you listened. You closed the tab. You put down the pen. You said maybe tomorrow. And tomorrow came. And the same voice was waiting. That voice is not your friend. That voice is not your conscience. That voice is not the truth. That voice is your enemy. And the most dangerous thing about it, it lives inside you. It speaks in your own words. It sounds like your own thoughts. It feels like wisdom, but it is not wisdom. It is fear, dressed up as reason. And today, I want to tell you the story of a young man named Ryan, a young man who spent years fighting an enemy he could not see, because the enemy was him. Ryan was 24 years old. From the outside, he looked fine. He had a small job. He had a decent room. He had people who cared about him. But inside was a different world. Inside was a battlefield. Every morning, Ryan would wake up with something pulling at him, a feeling that he was meant for more, not arrogance, not ego, just a quiet, persistent feeling there is something you are supposed to do. He wanted to start something of his own, a small creative project, something he had been thinking about for almost 3 years. 3 years. The idea was there, the passion was there, the time was there, but every time he sat down to begin, the voice came. What if no one cares? What if you embarrass yourself? Other people are already doing this better than you ever could. And Ryan would sit back, close his eyes, and wait. For what? He never quite knew. He was just waiting. And the days kept moving, even when he didn't. Here is what nobody tells you about the war inside your mind. It doesn't look like a war. It looks like a normal day. Ryan would wake up at 7, make tea, scroll his phone for 40 minutes, tell himself he was just waking up. Then he would sit at his desk, open his laptop, stare at the blank screen, and the negotiation would begin. I'll start after breakfast. I'll start when I feel more focused. I'll start on Monday. Fresh week, fresh start. Monday would come, and the voice would find a new reason. You haven't researched enough. You need a better plan first. You're not in the right headspace today. And the weeks would pass. Ryan started noticing things that hurt. A friend from college, someone who was never particularly talented, had started something small. It wasn't perfect, but it existed. People were responding to it. Ryan felt something twist inside his chest. Not hatred. Something worse. Recognition. Because he knew deep down, quietly, uncomfortably, that his friend wasn't smarter, wasn't more talented, wasn't more prepared. His friend had just done one thing differently. His friend had started. That night, Ryan sat by his window for a long time. The city outside was moving. Lights were on in 100 windows. People were working, building, creating, living, and Ryan was watching, always watching, never in the story, only ever in the audience of his own life. He opened his journal, a habit he kept but rarely used, and wrote 4 words. What is wrong with me? He stared at those 4 words for a long time. Then he closed the journal and went to sleep. 2 days later, Rayan visited his uncle. His uncle was a man in his late 50s. He had lived a quiet, ordinary life. A simple job, a small house, a modest garden outside his window. But there was something about his uncle that Rayan had never quite been able to name. A kind of stillness. A peace that didn't come from having everything, but from having made peace with himself. Ryan sat with him that evening over tea. After a long silence, his uncle looked at him and said, "You look like a man carrying something heavy." Ryan laughed softly. "I don't know what's wrong with me, uncle. I have everything I need to start. But I can't." His uncle was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his tea glass and held it up toward the fading evening light. "You see this glass?" he said. "It is full of tea right now. And because it is full, I cannot put anything else in it." He set the glass down. Your mind is like this glass, Ryan, but it is not full of good things. It is full of doubts, full of fears, full of other people's opinions that you heard once and never let go of, full of old failures you keep replaying, full of questions that have no answers yet. He paused, and a full glass cannot receive anything new. You don't need more motivation, Beta. You don't need a better plan. You don't need the right moment. You need to empty the glass. Ryan sat with those words. The evening light was fading outside the small window. A bird settled on the garden wall and then lifted away. And something inside Ryan, something that had been clenched for 3 years, began, very slowly, to loosen. That night, Ryan did not open his laptop. He did not make a plan. He did not research. He did not prepare. He sat on the floor of his room with his journal, and he did something he had never done before. He emptied the glass. He wrote down every fear, every doubt, every voice that had ever told him he wasn't enough. People will laugh. It won't be good enough. I'll fail publicly. I'm already too late. He wrote them all down, every single one. And then he looked at them, really looked at them, and he realized something that changed everything. Not one of these thoughts was a fact, not one. They were all stories. Stories his mind had invented, stories dressed up as warnings. Stories that had been running the show for 3 years. He picked up his pen, and above every fear, he wrote one question. Is this actually true? Or is this just a thought? One by one, fear by fear, and one by one they began to lose their power, not disappear. Lose their power. There is a difference. The fears didn't vanish that night. But for the first time, Ryan saw them for what they were, just thoughts, not facts, not prophecies, not truth, just thoughts, and thoughts can be changed. Here is what Ryan understood that night, and what I want you to understand right now. Your mind is the most powerful thing you own, but it is also the thing most likely to betray you if you let it run without direction. An undirected mind does not rest. It does not wait quietly. It fills itself with fear, with comparison, with worst-case scenarios that have never happened and probably never will. And if you never question what your mind is telling you, you will spend your whole life obeying an enemy that speaks in your own voice. The enemy is not out there. It is not your circumstances. It is not your background. It is not your lack of resources or connections or talent. The enemy is the unexamined thought. The thought you heard once, maybe from a parent, a teacher, a failure, a moment of shame, and decided was the truth about you. It is not the truth about you. It never was. Empty the glass, question the voice, and then begin. Not when you're ready. Not when the fear is gone. Not when the timing is perfect. Now, with the fear still present, with the doubt still whispering, with the glass not yet completely empty, begin anyway. Because the act of beginning is what empties the glass. Ryan started the next morning, not perfectly, not confidently, not without fear. He started with shaking hands and a quiet voice that still wasn't sure of itself. But he started, and something remarkable happened. The moment he began, the voice got quieter, not silent, quieter. Because that voice, that enemy, only has power in the space before action. The moment you move, it loses its grip, not forever, but enough. Enough for you to take one more step, and then one more, and then one more. That is how you defeat the enemy inside your head, not by silencing it, but by moving forward despite it. Ryan is still going. Some days are hard. Some days the voice comes back loud. But now, he knows something he didn't know before. The voice is not the truth, and he doesn't have to obey it. If you are sitting somewhere right now, and there is something you have been waiting to begin, something that keeps getting pushed to tomorrow, let me say this to you as clearly and as gently as I can. Your mind is not always your friend, but it can become one. The moment you stop obeying every fear it hands you and start questioning it instead, empty the glass and begin. If this story touched something real inside you. If it spoke to the part of you that has been waiting too long, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe to SMJ's Tales for more stories like this one. Because sometimes one story is all it takes to finally begin.